This will be one time where the new commissioners will actually be a tiny bit ahead of y'all. We had an orientation with them, and we had a very good meeting. They were all very inquisitive, and we already had a lot of good ideas. But I was able to mention to them something that we're facing now that's going to make the way we do one aspect of our economic development that we've been very successful at. It's going to be different than the way it has in the past. In the past, when we wanted to build a shell building or a speculative type space, Bladen's Bloomin' has always built those facilities initially. Now, lots of times the county commissioners have given grants to, say, the Committee 100 or Bladen's Bloomin' to help particularly with the down payments on these buildings. There was a court case in somewhere around 2012 where a group challenged a local government being able to give a grant to a nonprofit entity to do anything with real estate. And at the Supreme Court level, it was upheld that it was unconstitutional. So, in order to build speculative space, Greg and I have been working with the Institute of Governments. The state expert is Tyler Mulligan, and they had not come up with a solution to this issue. It's probably still being done in some parts of the state, but since we know that that's not the way to do it, we have to start looking for the appropriate way to do it. So Greg and I brainstormed with Tyler Mulligan over a couple of weeks, and we came up with a solution that is, we think, both viable and Tyler clears as being legal as to the state constitution. So it's not even something, I've had several people say, well, why don't you get some of your legislators to pass a law so it's okay? It's not even a law thing, it's a constitution thing. So they would have to go back and change the Constitution to make it legal. And a lot of our surrounding states don't have this issue because whatever phrase we have in our Constitution that they say makes it unconstitutional, these other states don't have. So like in South Carolina, they can still do it. Anyway, but just quickly to explain, if the county wanted to sell a piece of land or a building to a private for-profit client. So let's take, we have Acme Company and they want to come here and create 200 jobs and put down a $20 million investment. In order to do that, in order for the county to be able to convey that land or that building, they would have to pay at least the average wage of the county. And ours right now is over $14 an hour. We're actually working with a local industry that's looking to bring a project here right now. And it's one of the better paying industries in the county, and they still barely are meeting the threshold. So we're into the state for incentives to try to close that project down right now. But the average manufacturing wage in the county is really pretty high. It's 14 something an hour. Also, the company must pay for at least 50% of the benefits of the company. The project must also be competitive with another state. If it's not competitive with another state, it's not eligible, so you've got to demonstrate that. And also, the taxes that that company pays has to pay back the amount of money that you subsidize in a certain amount of time. Greg, I can't remember what it was. It's like 2 or 3 years, 3 or 5 years, something like that. But when we get to where that's an exact issue, we'll know all the details then. The reason this can't be done with Bladen's Bloomin' is because we do not actually hire any of the people and pay them ourselves. So even though we are a job creating organization, even though our projects have created, thousands of jobs over the last 15, 16, 20 years, and even though we've brought tens of millions of dollars of investment, it doesn't matter because we are not the direct employer of those people. We don't write or sign the checks. So we are ineligible for this. Also, if you look at, for example, the Elizabethtown Industrial Park or the Bladenboro Industrial Park, the companies that we have in those parks tend to be smaller companies starting out, and very few, if any of those, when they start out, are paying 14 plus an hour. You got to think our average manufacturing wage is pretty much driven by Smithfield Foods. When you got 5,000 manufacturing jobs at one place, then we don't have but maybe 3,000 other manufacturing jobs in the whole county, if that many. So our average is going to be driven by whatever it is at Smithfield. And they're such a large company that their pay tends to be high, their benefits are incredible. So they're they're driving what our market is. So the way we came up to legally do it, if the county wants to continue to invest in these things and make them happen. 2 years ago was the first time the county had set aside $144,000 for economic development. At that point, we thought we were going to put it into a building, but then we found out about this, so we had to stop and try to figure out a way to do it. And the building that we've done since then has just been done with Bladen County's own money, or with going out and doing loans or writing grants. But it has really slowed the pace that we put product down. In fact, we're to the point right now where there's only one available industrial property in the county, and that's the BBAI heavy building, the 30,000 foot building out at the industrial park. As a result, our visits are really down because at least 80, probably 90+% of the companies that come see us are coming to look at a building. So in order to get more visits, we need to get more product up. So the way that we found to make it legal to do this would actually mean that the county would be the entity originally building the building. And I'm going to demonstrate here, so y'all anywhere in here, if you're confused about what we're saying, a lot of you, this is the first time you're hearing it. We went over it really fast when I met with you all before. It's really important that you understand it. So if you're missing anything that I'm saying, just go ahead and stop me. Yes, sir.
Chuck, I was listening to you talking about Bladen County.
Yes, sir.
And I know that's somewhat the catalyst of what generates business like in an industrial park.
Yes, sir.
But if you were to speak with someone on the outside, would they be referenced to refer them to Bladen Blooming, if somebody wanted to bring a small business in? Is there any other avenues for a small business to come into Bladen County other than Bladen Blooming?
We work with lots of companies that Bladen Blooming doesn't do anything for. So it really depends on the type of business that you're talking about. Sometimes a business just goes to the chamber and we have nothing to do with it. Sometimes a business just goes to a real estate agent and they may find the little building somewhere that works for them.
The reason I was asking is I was listening to you talking about the type of incentives that Bladen Blooming generates and what they do and how they do business.
Correct.
If we are commissioners out in the public sector someplace and someone talks to us about business development in this county,
yep.
What are some talking points that, as commissioners, that we could try and entice a person to want to look at Bladen County as a place to put business in?
Well,
what do we do?
Refer them to the Economic Development Commission, because even if we don't do exactly what they're looking for, we know the other sources. Like there are lots of times where somebody's looking to start a business and it's not really an industrial type business, which is where our main focus is. Although we have done now healthcare facilities and call centers and other stuff. But lots of times I can refer them to, let's say, Advancement. Advancement has done a bunch of low interest, set rate financing for small businesses looking to start up in this county. Sometimes they need help with a business plan. I can refer them to, gosh, what's the community college? Todd.
Bladen.
Yeah, Todd Lyden. So, I mean, you can refer them to the Economic Development Commission, and we'll refer them out to any source that we know about.
Well, one of the reasons I was, Mr. Gentleman, that was talking about business initiatives that was going on in their counties, and with some of the facilities that have been shut down. And they are saying that they're utilizing some of the shut down facilities where guys are actually coming in with businesses that are small, and they're actually running warehouses where they're sending product through a facility, a big facility, and they use it for staging and for products, but it's also a small nucleus of guys in here that actually generate that business, and they're putting those things in place. Is that the kind of thing we do? Or?
Mr. Cogdell.
You have to have available buildings to do that. But
Mr. Cogdell, if what Chuck wants to present is something a little bit different, can we listen to it? And then what you want to do goes on these strengths and weaknesses and opportunities.
and it may be a new initiative that we can do.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm
Just
just,
keep your thought, and I'm saying, I think there's going to be a place for it just a minute.
no problem, I just got to figure out, when you talk about Bladen Blooming, what was the limitations on which one?
Okay. And again, Bladen's Blooming mainly does real estate development and revolving loans. But the way we're most likely going to have to do this in the future, and that means you all have to agree to it, because you would actually be the ones initially building the facility. Now, I can still do the work. I, as the the executive director of the Economic Development Commission, can handle everything the exact way I've been doing it for Bladen's Blooming. But this is the process and how it works. Okay, just a while ago, each of the last 2 years, you all have set aside $144,000 for economic development that we have not been able to access because we didn't have the right program in place to do it. So the county has over here $288,000 waiting to help stimulate the Bladen County economy. The thing that we've seen that's the most successful, the quickest to us, is small industrial space. I'm going to read you right quick some of the medium-sized industrial space that's been built in the region. Fairmont did a 40,000-foot shell building. It's been vacant and unsold for 20 years. Pender County, 40,000-foot building, been vacant. They haven't been able to move it 6 years. Wallace, 24,000-foot spec space. It's been vacant for somewhere between 6 and 8 years. Wayne County, 55,000 square foot building, vacant for 14 years. They finally sold it for pennies on the dollar to Mount Olive Pickle, an existing company that I think do some warehousing or something. Scotland County shell building, 44,000 feet, vacant for 10 years, and they thought they just had a deal. They have over $1 million in it. They thought they just had a deal to sell it for $150,000, and it didn't come through. Columbus County, a shell building, 44,000 feet, that sat vacant for just over 10 years. And Cumberland County, 125,000 square foot shell building that also stayed vacant for probably over 10 years. Now, in the same time that these were done, we built and moved 2 40,000 foot shell buildings. But I think that was from very good work by our Committee of 100s and Bladen's Blooming and the county. I think we were very fortunate. There was also the fortune of having the right expense in the building and the right client come along. I think this is just evidence that it's a dangerous market, and that's why we're focusing more on the small market. Greg, you might take one of these and pass the rest around. That one first. The first building here is a 8,100 foot spec building in Bladenboro. We like this project because we have not been able to do industrial incubators. We've not done them in Bladenboro yet. We have more large facilities over there. We have not done incubator space over there. It's worked very well in Elizabethtown, and we really think it will be more suited for the Bladenboro Park than the larger buildings. So the first one is 8,100 square feet. As you can see there on the front page, the very first building when you turn off the road is the 8,100 foot building. The neat thing about this is the way we're developing it, you can just, every time you build a new building, extend the parking lot or the roadway, so it's going to be very cost efficient to build the next buildings. But the second building is a 12,000 foot. The third building is a 24,000 foot. So you can see there's a large variety of sizes that we can fit in that space. So as we build one and occupy, you just move over to the next lot and build the size building you want to next. But the first one that we're talking about here is the very first building you're seeing as you drive off the road, 8,100 square foot building. Now, these numbers, I have not taken bids on these yet. The numbers I'm going to be using are hypothetical, but I think they would be somewhere near the ballpark. So I'm saying for this exercise that the cost of the facility would be $450,000, be the entity to build this. So we would have to get plans and specs, we would have to bid it out, and then we'd have to take the bids back in, choose the contractor, and build the facility. Now, the reason Bladen's Blooming came in existence is three primary reasons. One, Bladen's Blooming can respond to a client quicker than the county does. Because we're private, we could have a company visit today, and I can call a board meeting of my members, since we're private, and we can have a lease signed or sell the building tomorrow. So it's very fast, which gives us an advantage against other places. The other thing is that because we're private, the information we exchange with the client can be private, financials and stuff. And lots of times, a client may not want to share financials with a public entity because they know eventually it becomes public record. And the third thing is because we're private, all liability stops with us. So if you have a company in there and somebody has an accident and they're hurt at the building, with the county not being the owner, they can't come sue you. They might sue the company that they work for, or they could go after Bladen's Blooming. But there is no connection with this organization to the county. So these are the reasons, 16 years ago, that we set up this as a private. So if the cost of the building is $450,000, there are two ways that you can then convey this building to Bladen's Blooming. One is you could have a public auction. Bladen's Blooming could show up at the public auction and bid on it. In that case, though, you run the danger of, let's say there's somebody that wants a little warehouse to store something, and they show up there and start bidding against Bladen's Blooming just to buy the building and sit there and store, farm equipment or old furniture or, something like that. The second way that you can convey it is by appraised value. And this is what we suggest as the method to do it. So you get a commercial appraiser, he gets the plans and the specs and everything. So he looks at the market and does a commercial appraisal before the building is ever built. So let's say that he does an appraisal of this 8,100 square foot building. I have comps from the Bladenboro Park. There's just about no way that this building would appraise for $200,000. I have comps ranging from just barely over $8 a square foot to $14 to $21 to $23 a square foot. So with the buildings appraised in that park, let's use for, purposes of this exercise again, and this could be an agreement between the county and Bladen's Blooming. Let's say it appraises for $200,000 and we agree to convey it at $200,000. So $200,000 is the appraised value. Okay, this creates $250,000 that has to be subsidized from somewhere. If the county builds it for $450 and the appraised value is $200, and you sell it to Bladen's Blooming for $200, then you have to have $250 to make up the gap. Our proposal is to take that $250 from the $288 sitting there. So in this case, you would have $38,000 sitting in that economic development fund, ready for the next building or the next acreage you want to buy. Bladen's Blooming would pay back the $200,000. Ford County will finance this speculative space for us at 0%. So Bladen's Blooming comes over here and finances the facility, about $200,000 at 0%. That way, we are very competitive. When a client comes to look at the building and we're competing against South Carolina or China or wherever, we're able to be very competitive on the project because we have a lower amount in it. And then as we generate revenue, we're just going to turn around and put it into the next project to build the next building. Now, I'm going to stop here on this one. And if y'all completely understand that, y'all are smarter than me and Greg were, because it took us a while to get our mind around this. So what are your questions? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Speaker. Yes, ma'am.
So who does Bladen Blooming assets belong to the county?
No, they belong to the nonprofit. So they don't belong to any individual, they belong to the nonprofit. So if anything happened to Bladen's Blooming, those assets could be given to the county, or they could be given to another nonprofit. But they cannot go to a for-profit entity, or they cannot go to an individual.
But the county then ends up having more assets, money out, but no assets.
Correct. In the past, what the county has done is just given a grant to Bladen's Blooming, but we can't do that anymore.
Oh, so that grant would still come out the same?
Right, right. What we would have done in the past is just granted this $250,000 to Bladen's Blooming. But now we can't do that.
And mentioned that was a very public process. I mean, there was a public hearing held and that type of thing. So it wasn't just like something we included in the budget and wrote a check. I mean, it was a very advertisement in the newspaper and that type.
So it's doing the same thing, but it's a more complicated way of process of doing it. Yes, sir.
The scenario, I'm just looking at the scenario you got.
Yes.
$450,000 is county costs to construct it.
Yes.
And you guys, Bladen Blooming is willing to come in and say we'll buy the appraisal value for $200,000.
There will be a contracted price that it would be bought for before you ever start.
And so if it was said $200,000, that would be it.
Correct.
Then we would have to absorb the $250 more.
Right, which that would come out of the money that the county already has set aside for economic development.
So every time you go into a project like that, then we have to reshift and realign money in order for you to even develop the project.
Right, what you would do is, right now you're setting aside $144,000 a year. This group would decide at what rate they want to try. The reason I like this is because y'all are going to be now as engaged in what type of product we build, where and when, as Bladen's Blooming is.
The last words I'm asking, if the county set the money up like this, and then we sell it for $200 and give it a $250,000 gift, if that business stayed for 3 years or 2 years, who does the property belong to at that point? Who is all the cost?
The property belongs to Bladen's Blooming unless we sell it to a client. Let's say we have somebody who wants to come in and create 100 jobs, then we can sell them the building, and then the money we get from selling it, we just put into building another building.
So
When you say we, you talking about Bladen Blooming?
Bladen's Blooming, correct.
and one of the scenarios you gave us at one time is someone walks off in a year's time, then that means we would just have to absorb that cost of that loss.
No,
Who will absorb that cost?
Bladen's Blooming owns the facility, and we have to pay the mortgage because y'all have sold it to us. So the county is still shielded from any long-term liability of the asset.
So then y'all wouldn't pay $250, you just pay $200, right?
We're paying payments on the 200, right?
That's all you would pay. So
That's right.
$250 would just be.
I think what he's getting at, and I see exactly what he said, we still, as taxpayers, have given up $250,000.
And this is the way I'm looking at it, and I may be completely wrong here, but I'm looking at it as in, we're able to then, we have a business or a company here that is going to be able to then generate jobs for our citizens. That we're already setting aside a certain amount of money each year for the economic development. And then we're able to tap into that when we are able to, if we have a buyer or a company or whomever who is interested in setting up shop here in Bladen County. And I can only say that anything that we're able to do to create jobs, to have that impact on our county is a good thing. And just having the Bladen Blooming where they're able to absorb any and all liabilities through their nonprofit organization, I feel like that's where I guess we're taking that 250 and kind of saying, well, we're going to be able to create these jobs, and we're going to be able to increase,
Right, yeah.
average.
That's exactly the way it works.
Now, my question though,
Yes, sir.
once you got the 250, you got 38,000 left.
Yes, there's 38,000 left in the county's economic development.
What happens if another business want to come here and you need to build another building, you only got $38,000?
Well, what Bladen's Blooming, what we're thinking about this year is actually 2 facilities. Did you pass around the second one, Mr. Good? The second one is a 40,000 square foot, no, I'm sorry, 14,000 square foot building in the Elizabethtown Industrial Park. That one, it may work the same way, but that building may be $700,000 to build, and it's going to appraise a little bit better in Elizabethtown, but it still isn't going to appraise for what it has in it. So let's say it appraises for $500,000. Then the gap is going to be $200,000, and Bladen's Blooming would be financing $500,000. So, we're redoing the post office this year. What we're proposing are 2 other buildings. I met with Mr. Peterson, and we don't have the traffic coming into the county. We can build nothing. We can not do anything. But if we do, then the only traffic we're going to generate is that looking for a 30,000 square foot building with no natural gas. This way, basically anybody that needs 5, 10, 15, 20,000 or 30,000, we have product that puts us into the game. If not, this money just continues to sit here until it builds up to $600,000, $700,000, whatever. And then y'all could give it to a company to say, hey, come here. But that company may be 5, 6, 7 years from now.
So,
Yes, sir.
one question, I guess, I'm just looking at the scenario you got there.
Yeah.
And on the average, if you had to look at it from the years you've been in business, and you've been doing this directly, if you had to look at the variation of the appraisal value and the cost of construction, what percentage do you normally, Bladen Blooming normally buy? 40%?
We lose our butt on every building we build.
But do y'all usually take up 50%, 40%, 70%? What's on average?
Okay, here's a good example. The healthcare facility in Bladenboro that we built, we had about $1.164 million in it, so $1,164,000. We had a 10-year lease with Cape Fear, so you have a great tenant, incredible tenant, profitable lease, with another 10 years behind it. The building appraised for $800,000. So our loan that was for 80%, so we were thinking we were going to get like a $900-some-thousand loan. All of a sudden, our loan dropped to $640, 80% of $800. So we had to spend $300,000, Bladen's Blooming Emergency Reserve, to be able to build that building over there. Industrial and even in sometimes, depending on the location, commercial real estate in Bladen County does not have the value of what it costs to build. The day you finish building it, the value is lower than the cost you have in it.
The only difference in what you're presenting and what we've always done in the past is the way we have to do business today. We've always given Bladen that money, and they've always been the owners of the building. It's just the way that someone's read legislature that's changed the way we have to do business.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to be more open now than it ever has been in the past.
What I love about it is
$200,000. It could appraise for that. It could be a little bit less. It could be a little bit more.
Right.
You don't know till you do your appraisal. But there's no way to build anything and get. There's no way to spend $450,000 and get $450,000 for it.
Yeah,
It don't work.
Spec industrial space. I've never heard of it anywhere near here.
So what you're saying, Charles, you mean when you changed the concept of Bladen Blooming, you took away the county financing stuff with a leasing type arrangement and gave that strictly to Bladen Blooming. You guys took that over to Bladen Blooming.
The county never built buildings.
No.
Before, there were no buildings being built and we didn't have anybody coming to look. When Bladen Blooming started building buildings is when we started getting people coming to look at the county to put their businesses here. Yes, sir.
And correct me if I'm wrong. In the past, Bladen Blooming would build this building and the county would contribute so much money to it.
Yeah, and most of the time in the past, like Committee 100 may put in $15,000. Bladen County may give $25,000 or $15,000. Fort County Electric will give $11,250. Star Telephone will give $5,000. But if we continue at that rate, then you're only going to build a building once every 4 or 5 years. Where this is coming from, y'all, is the sales tax. What do you call it, Greg?
The additional sales tax.
The additional sales tax on services and labor. That money can be allocated 3 ways: for public schools, community college, or economic development. So that's where this money comes from.
That's where the second year, that's where the sustain.
Yeah, the first year you all just allocated. The second year and from here forward, it could be allocated out of that.
So that's a new legislation that just passed.
That's correct, yes, sir.
There's going to be additional dollars for new legislation.
The additional $700,000.
That's right.
Right. Supposed to be.
How the
Mr. Good.
industry standard, or is that just a rule standard, the appraised value?
It's obviously by location. So in Charlotte, there are private investors going out and building a 250,000 foot spec space and selling it or leasing it to a client for profit. However, if you're looking down here in Bladen, Columbus, Scotland, Robinson, I mean, it's just not going to happen. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment, because the VA facility in Wilmington, private, he gets that almost $1 million a month lease. So he gets quite a bit, $800,000. All right, great. How much money do we expect to receive in Bladen every year? About 144 or more? Does it matter?
No, you're talking about the revenue that we generate back to Bladen Blooming?
Yeah.
Okay, in Elizabethtown, and this is actually, this will help our tax revow. We have actually pushed the lease rates in the Elizabethtown Industrial Park up to over $4 a square foot now. It's beginning to be a price there where you could almost build a building and get your money back in 25, 28, 30 years. But an investor that builds a building wants their money back in about 7 or 8 years. You know, not that amount of time. But we are pushing lease rates to where the values are going up. Now, in Bladenboro, you're talking about, you know, it's not as marketable a location, so you're going to end up with values a little bit lower and also lease rates a little bit lower. But remember, Bladen's Blooming, we're not a for-profit entity. We're not trying to make money. Our entire goal is to create new jobs, new tax base, and agricultural opportunities. If we can help build a plant that adds value added to agriculture, so they use corn to do something, they use blueberries to do something. So it's value added agriculture, tax base, and jobs. That's what we try to do, not make money on real estate.
But the $144,000 you're talking about, I think, Greg, we got $750,000 last year.
Well, that was the estimate. This is the first year.
Guesstimate, just
And we've been receiving
$750,000. That's the new
$60,000.
sales tax we've been getting for a couple of years now. They've added more sales tax. I mean, there's going to be more sales tax on more things this year, but they just, okay. So that's going to increase, how much, that's going to increase the dollars we get. And then the commissioners will decide what goes to economic development, what goes to schools, and what goes to community development.
Yeah, but to me,
It was $144,000 we decided last time.
one thing to point out about that, and it's something that Greg and I have talked about, and a lot of other developers and county entities have talked about. Lots of times, the state will establish a tax or something, and the money will go local. But what happens when their budget gets tight 5, 6, 8 years later? They take it back. Well, under this scenario, if we invested in the buildings, the more Bladen's Blooming gets on the ground, then it's going to generate revenue back to Bladen's Blooming. So let's say it is taken in 8 years. We have the assets on the ground, not only creating jobs and tax base in the county, but it's also bringing back revenue that you can put into building more buildings. I hope one day we have enough money to go out and try a 60,000 foot spec. If you all and Bladen's Blooming and me and Greg and everybody feel comfortable that the market is there for it. But the way to get there is to build smaller stuff and you know, starting to generate more revenue. Now the other thing, we are talking to a client that could be well over $100 million investment. It could be a couple of hundred jobs. But at that time, the expectation is that the lot in the industrial park will be given to them free. It will be cleared already, and there'll be just short of a building pad on it. So it might also be wise to have a plan for we don't know if this is in 24 months or 60 months. It's supposed to be going out for competition sometime in the next 2 to 5 years. It may not, but it also may be something that we want to chip away at over the next 5 years, set money aside, because from where the county made a grant to Bladen's Blooming 10, 12 years ago, we've already acquired a third of the site that they would look at. So there's probably about 25 or 28 more acres that would have to be attained. Our lot is already cleared, so there may be some clearing there that has to be done. But then that product, we can have the money there and ready to go when the project goes under competition, instead of having to scramble and find out where are we going to get the money from. So, you know, it's not all just buildings. Buildings are the fastest success maker for us. But still, you know, we may also want to look at the long-term plan of setting aside some assets to be ready for a building pad ready site. Yes, sir.
Bottom line, based on the scenario and example that you've given us there, providing once it's built and then sold to Bladen's Blooming, that the taxpayers are contributing basically 60% of the cost for this project to go forward, to have some available for somebody to.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I think that's the long and short of it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, simple enough.
In the past, how long has a spec building sat vacant, or have you?
I hate to tell you this because I don't want to jinx ourselves. We have been doing incubator space now for 15 years. We have never had a day of vacancy. We have had a lease on every building that we have built the day. They have been leased during construction every time.
My next question with that is wonderful. But my next question is that because you built, because you knew there was companies looking into it, there was a communication
No,
initially?
every
or
building
from the
we
time
built,
that
every
they-
building, all 4 incubators in the Elizabethtown Park were started on a speculative basis, and the client showed up during the
During
time
the
we were
construction
getting ready to
process.
build it, right? Buildings draw visits. Now, like I said, I didn't even want to say that because as soon as you say it, you jinx yourself. But again, the unique thing about Bladen County is we are the only county anywhere building this small incubator space because, most places and developers, they want that $100 million project and the 200 jobs. So that's what the focus is. Well, we want that too, but in the time that we're waiting for that to happen, we do these. And without these, you wouldn't have Westwood out there. You wouldn't have, Delton out there. You wouldn't have Delton Machining. You wouldn't have Alertile. You wouldn't have Cape Fear Vineyard and Winery. You wouldn't have Aramark. The people that were already commissioners, the 4 new ones didn't come to the, we did the master plan thing, and we did the economic impact analysis. The economic impact of that park directly in Bladen County is around like 36 million a year or something. The indirect to the region is like 40-some million a year. So that's economic impact that if we had not built those buildings, absolutely would not be here. That industrial park there was there for more than a decade before Bladen's blooming, and there was nothing there. With the advent of Bladen's blooming in the last 15 years, everything out there is built up. Now, what Charles Ray's been talking to us about is, I want you to do it faster, and I want you to spread it out and try to have a more broad impact on the county. So that's what we're looking at and proposing. You all will decide in the budget process, and with it happening this way, you're going to be on the front end deciding which product is built where and when.
You mentioned earlier that we're in violation of the Constitution. Is there any legal ramifications on that?
No, the only
business, if we continue to do business like we've done in the past, we would do.
The grants that Bladen County has given were previous to the court decision.
Oh, okay.
But Donna, remember we built Donna out there, I was up board then, when they built that new wing of that, was it how through that same process? Or when a company comes there, can they request an addition, or do y'all build it based on their revenue?
Oh yeah, we'll work with the company to expand the building.
But I'm asking, that won't involve us, the county, in that type of.
Now, once it's to Bladen's blooming,
It's your thing.
then we have to do it.
So if they build an ad for an additional extension, then you guys will.
Then we have to work it out with them.
Okay.
That's just like on the Delton expansion we did on their machining plant. Yeah, which you toured that.
Yeah.
We added 6,900 feet. Delton is basically paying for that with their lease.
Okay.
Any more questions?
So y'all think about it. We'll come back at the end of the month when all the department heads are here, and hopefully by then we'll decide what we want to do. But we need to get some product on the ground.
No, one last question.
Yes, sir.
You gonna come in with a budget proposal and ask us for a budget request, and we gave $124,000 on last year? That's what we approved.
Now, there's 288 sitting there right now. Y'all haven't done the budget for next
Well, we
year.
gave you 144 the last time.
The county is holding 144 and 144. The county's holding 288.
But what I'm asking, is that gonna be suffice when budget time for us to appropriate another 144,000? Is that what you're talking about?
It's gonna be continuous.
That's what I'm asking.
Or more. If you want to do more buildings, you do more.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You want to do more buildings, you do more.
I'm just asking.
So the building's bringing the job, so we need to do more buildings then.
That's what Mr. Peterson told me I need to start thinking
You
about.
need to do more buildings.
But y'all, if you want me to, I can try to start now and go ahead and do some preliminary budgeting on these 2 projects.
That's
so
right.
that when we come back, you have something a little more tangible. But, or we can wait to the 30th, and I can start the process then. It's up to y'all.
So right now, you have $288,000 that you can deal with, right now,
Yeah, the county has 288 sitting there.
that you can deal with.
Right, so what I'd love to do is have one project under construction in the first half of this year and do a second project in the second half of this year.
Okay.
And if I wait to the 30th, it's just, you know, you're 1 month later doing it. But I mean, we're trying to bid the post office right now, so it's not like we're sitting there.
So the 144 will be added, that's what you're saying?
Nope, I didn't say that.
He's never gonna say that.
I would,
We've said that in the past, and we've been told that we need to
I would
speed
think
it up.
it would be appropriate, I'd like to make a motion where you go ahead and do the study on the 8,100 square feet and the other option.
Okay.
Josh, is everybody in consensus with that? We don't need a motion.
You don't need a vote.
Okay, move forward, Chuck.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it, y'all.
Ready? We're gonna do this one little section, we'll take a little break.
Good evening. I would like to take a few moments to review Bladen County's vision statement.